event that she anticipates with pleasure. She can still feel that making dinner for Todd is an occasion, can still marvel at the stroke of fate that brought him into her life, a matter of rank chance that did not seem to favor a further acquaintance, much less a future of appetizing meals lovingly prepared. It came to pass on a rainy morning in spring. Busy with her graduate studies in psychology, waiting tables at night, overworked, exhausted, she was moving house, driving north on State Street in a rental van loaded with her household goods. As she prepared to change lanes from right to left, she might have looked over her shoulder, or maybe not. She found the van awkward, didn't have a feel for it, and on top of this her windows were fogged and she'd missed her turn at the last set of lights. Given these conditions, she might have been distracted, a question that later came to be much discussed between them. When he clipped her driver's side door and spun her into oncoming traffic, there was a general honking of horns and squealing of brakes, and before she could pull herself together, before she fully realized that her van had come to a standstill and she was perfectly all right, he was screaming at her through her closed window. "You crazy bitch! What in God's name do you think you're doing? Are you some kind of maniac? Where did you learn to drive? People like you should stay off the road. Are you going to get out of your car, or are you just going to sit there like an imbecile?" His tirade that day in the rain did not give a favorable impression, but a man who's been in a car crash is going to be irate, even if it's his own fault, which, in this instance, it was not. So when he called a few days later to ask her to dinner, she graciously accepted. He took her to Greektown, where they ate lamb souvlaki washed down with cold retsina. The restaurant was crowded, the tables close together, the lights bright. They found themselves shouting over the din and laughing at their failure to be heard. What conversation they could manage was pared down to succinct phrases like, "The food is good. I like it here. My windows were fogged. If it hadn't happened, I would never have met you." She didn't go out on many bona fide dates. The men she knew from university took her for pizza and beer and counted out their money. They'd meet her at the restaurant, scruffy and unshaven, still in the clothes they'd worn to class. Whereas Todd had put on a clean shirt, and he'd picked her up, and they'd driven to the restaurant together. And now he was looking after her, refilling her glass and checking on her comfort level. Sitting across from him, she was pleased with what she saw, the way he casually took up space and his air of being in charge. She liked the homey habit he had of wiping his knife on his bread, and that he put down his credit card without looking at the bill. When they were back in his truck, he drove her to his building site in Bucktown, a 19th century mansion that he was reconverting, from rooming house back into single-family dwelling. Guiding her up the crumbling walk, he lightly held her elbow. "Careful now. Watch your step." It was a Gothic revival eyesore of decaying brick, flaking paint, and narrow windows, with spiky gables that gave it a menacing upward thrust, a vulgar aberration on a street lined with square-built structures that were fully restored. In place of the front porch, there was a ladder to be climbed, and in the entrance hall a massive chandelier lay on its side. The front room, a vault-like space with an implausibly high ceiling, featured heaps of rubble and dangling wires. "There used to be a wall here," he said, gesturing. "You can see the footprint." She looked at the floor with its missing planks. "When they turned it into a boarding house, they built a lot of partitions. The way it is now, this is back to the original layout. You can really see how it's going to shape up." She found it hard to picture any sort of end result. It didn't help that there was no electricity, the only light a pale wash coming from the street lamps outside. He lit a candle, dripped some of the melting wax into a saucer, and fixed it upright. He was keen to show her around, and they carried the candles.